Hey guys, what's poppin'? It's Pagino Goat back with another YouTube video. So today we actually got some special guests, you know what I'm saying? And we're going to be talking about the top 5 Uchiha members, but we're going to do it with a little bit of a twist. But before I go into that, I got my main man back, DC Comic Stand, you know what I'm saying? DC, say what's poppin' to the people at home.
What up, what up?
And then of course, I got the illustrious UK Matt. Matt, say what's poppin'. All right, guys. So I have assembled a bit of a dream team here. Okay, so basically what we are going to do is we're going to rank the top 5 Uchiha. As I mentioned before, we're going to do a little bit of a twist. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to use like different forms. So, you know, sometimes we'll be talking about like top 5 Uchiha, including like Hebi Sasuke. Sometimes, you know, and then like in like the next section, it'll be like, you know, Edo Itachi. One section will be a live Itachi, you know. So like we're gonna constantly go to like the top 5 Uchihas, but the forms are gonna vary each top 5 list that we do. So I hope you guys follow exactly what I'm saying, but we're gonna just basically go into that. Alright guys, so for this first section, we came to an agreement that these top 5 will be in there. I'm just going to say it so it'll be easier for you guys to grasp who we're actually talking about. And then like on the following sections, we can name the people that we switched out and like use for a different form. So this section will be including a live Itachi, Hebi Sasuke, Yellow Mask Obito, Edo Madara, and Shisui. Obviously it won't be in that order, so stick around to find out the order, you know what I'm saying? So coming in at number 5, we have my main man, Shisui Uchiha. You guys actually know how I feel about him. He's not really my main man at all. I think that Shisui is very overrated. However, I think because he's overrated, he's kind of underrated, if that makes sense. Like, Shisui doesn't really have a lot of feats. Like, most of Shisui's, like, scaling comes from the hype surrounding him, as Matt, you know, would say, and that I actually, like, agree with. Like, Shisui got wanked off in the manga a little bit, but you can't really, like, definitively place him anywhere. So, actually, something that I wanted to use, because I know that people are going to be screaming at home being like, where's Fugaku? Fugaku, he was a Hokage candidate that instantly makes him as strong as Minato. No, it doesn't. So basically, we have a novel statement right here saying, that's exactly what I'm saying. No one in the Uchiha clan can match the abilities of Itachi and Shisui. And basically what I'm just trying to go with this is that time and time again, it's like implied that like Itachi and Shisui are like the chosen ones of the like Uchiha clans. They are extremely skilled. They are extremely dangerous. People like actually fear them more than any other member of the clan. Like, these guys are the golden boys, and Shisui being coupled in with Itachi, and they're like referred more than one time as being the most talented, being like the most formidable of their clan. I think that this is some pretty good justification for putting him over somebody like Fugaku. So before we actually move on to number 4, I actually want to hear the opinions of Matt and DC. Do you guys think that like Shisui is properly placed? Do you think we should put someone like Fugaku here instead? Or what are your guys' opinions on this?
I pretty much agree with you, CJ, in the sense that I think Shisui is mainly scaled through hype and basically hype alone. He's similar to Fugaku in the sense that we don't actually see feats from them, where we can place them like amongst the other Uchihas or higher than them.
And what are your thoughts, Mr. Comic Stan?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I don't see any reason why we would just be completely eliminating Fugaku from the statement of them being the strongest Uchiha. Like, when you're saying something, you're talking about the entire clan. You wouldn't just be completely eliminating one for like no reason. So I think that would apply to every Uchiha member that's currently alive. So yeah, I 100% agree with you when it comes down to that.
All right, guys. Yeah, so I really hope that you guys agree, though. I think that there's some Fugaku stands out there that will be smashing the keyboards at the speed of sound. But for this video, I think it's just pretty comfortable to put Shisui at number 5, even though he is a featless man. He got some pretty good statements. So at number 4, you guys know how I love talking about him. We have Hebi Sasuke. Now, Hebi Sasuke is a pretty interesting case. I'm going to be talking about like mainly his feats from the Deidara fights, and I'm going to talk about like some data books, because those are very important to when you're scaling Akatsuki characters. So now, obviously, Sasuke has been like noted numerous times by like Deidara and like Obito to have, well, not Obito, Toby, to have like very impressive speeds. It actually gets to the point where like Deidara just like kind of feels more comfortable just flying above Sasuke and not actually engaging him in anything that has to do with physical stats, because he knows that he's just like too slow. So now where this comes in and where this is important is that it's actually stated in the data book, though there are a couple of translations, that like the Akatsuki members, like each individual one, are relative, if not more powerful than Bijus and in some cases Jinchurikis. So this being like this Sasuke being able to be faster, be stronger than this Deidara, who's obviously a member of the Akatsuki, and that would like fall under, you know what I'm saying, that like statement would fall under him. That this would also put him above certain Bijus, above certain Jinchurikis. Obviously, I'm not talking about, you know, like, Hebi Sasuke is above B because B is a... No. So I just think that this is a pretty comfortable, you know, place to like put him. Like we said previously, Shisui mainly comes from hypes. You don't really have feats. We can't like definitively place him anywhere. Sasuke, we can definitively place him. He is around like Biju level. He's around Akatsuki member level, but like low end, I would like say he surpasses people like Deidara, surpasses people like Sasori, you know. But when it comes to like the stronger people, such as like Kakazu, Kisame, Sasuke is not quite there yet. Now, obviously, before I, you know, continue on to number 3, I want to make sure that we are in agreement here, or if we aren't, you know, maybe explain why. So, DC, what are your thoughts, senor?
Yeah, you got through everything pretty quick. Like, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah,
like definitely like
Jinchuriki
level, like Yukito Jinchuriki level, like pretty much like where Kakuzu and Hidan no differ. Like when we're talking about like Jinchuriki, we're not talking about Naruto Jinchuriki level. We're talking about like the lower level Jinchuriki, like the 3 tails, 2 tails, of course, that kind of stuff. You know, more tailed beast, tails that you have, I guess the stronger you are, and Yukito only got 2, so she ain't that strong. But yeah, 100% agree with you.
Yeah, facts. Matt, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, honestly, it would be hard to disagree with what you said, because based on Deidara's own reactions and admittance while he was fighting Sasuke, like, you can't really argue against that.
Yeah. All right, boys, so we are all in agreement. Hebi Sasuke will be number 4 here. All right, so now we are approaching the top 3. Now, when it comes to number 3, this specific character, I feel like Matt has a lot of good knowledge on this character, so I actually want him to like start off and expand on this character and as to where this character scales. So, Matt, who do you got at number 3?
I have got Alive Itachi at number 3, and let me reiterate, this is Alive Itachi. I think it's really easy to get him to above Sannin level by default based on what he's achieved when he was basically dead. We see him dead on his legs, or dead on his feet rather, just blitz Orochimaru with the Totsuka blade in his stated strongest form according to one of the data books. We also see Orochimaru, while he's healthy and has control of both of his hands, just get neg-diffed by Itachi in his Akatsuki days too. Suigetsu pretty much says to Sasuke in his EMS form that the only reason he defeated Orochimaru was because Orochimaru's arms were rendered useless by the Reaper Death Seal. And the fact that we see Itachi just make quick work of that Orochimaru that Suigetsu is speaking of, the one who can control his arms, it just speaks volumes about how strong Alive Itachi is and how he is undoubtedly stronger than Hebi Sasuke.
Yeah, so honestly, I like believe when it comes to number 3, Itachi's just at a really good spot. Like, as Matt was saying, he's just like blatantly above Sannin level like characters. Like when he was, you know, kind of like new to the Akatsuki, he just kind of like slams Orochimaru via Genjutsu and just puts those little stone, those like little nails in him. And then like, you know, just on like when you're comparing him to like Hebi Sasuke and when you're like comparing like Sannin members to some of the Akatsuki members, it's just easier to get them above those like lower level people such as like Hidan, such as, you know, Deidara, Sasori. So honestly, I think that number 3 for Itachi is just a really good spot. DC, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, actually I would. It's not really adding on to you, but I do have a question for Matt. So, Matt, there was a statement in part 1 where I'm pretty sure it's like when Itachi and Kisame pulled up on like the apartment or the hotel that they were staying in, Naruto was staying in with Jiraiya, where they like pretty much said that they couldn't beat Jiraiya there. And a lot of people like to use that to kind of debunk the fact that Itachi, like a healthier Itachi, could not beat a Sannin. And I wanted to know what your thoughts are on that, if you agree, disagree.
I obviously disagree. It's like it's really easy to just debunk it, considering you have to understand what Itachi's position in the Akatsuki is. He's a front for the Hidden Leaf. He's a spy for the Hidden Leaf. So obviously he wouldn't want to take on one of the strongest shinobi from Konoha and potentially kill. Even if we take what he said at face value and said, yeah, he's speaking truth right now. He said both of them could die if they fought.
Okay.
What that would mean is Itachi would die, so leaving Konoha without a spy for them, and Jiraiya would die as well, leaving Konoha without one of their strongest shinobi. I don't think Itachi was actually telling the truth there. I think he just wanted to avoid a confrontation, and that was the quickest excuse he could come up with. And as for Kisame, Kisame literally only had knowledge on the title Sannin. He's guesstimating the power level of Sannin. He has no like prior intel to suggest that, oh, this is Jiraiya who I know I can't fight. He's just basically in awe of the title that Jiraiya has, and therefore just didn't want to engage as well.
Okay.
Yeah, if like I could actually possibly add on to that like quite a bit. We see it like in part 1 especially, the title of Sannin holds a lot of weight, right? So like the title of Sannin is like pretty much known like worldwide in the like entire shinobi world, as in like these like people are extremely powerful, right? So it just like kind of like gives credence to what like Matt's saying, that like Kisame is guesstimating, listen, the Sannin have this much hype. They are like consistently referred to as like some of the strongest shinobi in the entire world, right? So it makes a lot of sense that he's overestimating Jiraiya a little bit just based off the title and how much weight that said title holds. All right, so now that we have numbers 5, 4, and 3 in a pretty good spot, I think. Obviously people are going to disagree, but it is what it is. Let's start talking about number 2. Matt, I also want you to take the helm on this one. And who is number 2?
Yellow Mask Obito is number 2, and he does not have Kurama. What I'd like to say is that he doesn't even need Kurama to be in this position. We see him take on the 4th Hokage, and like people underestimate Obito so much for this encounter. They just say like, "Oh, Minato slammed him. What are you on about?" But when you actually like reread the fight, Obito does a lot more than people think. When he appears behind Minato and Minato senses him and tries to swing at him with his kunai, Obito is able to react to it and then grab his arm in the same breath essentially, and then initiate his Kamui Warp. You have to be relative to someone if you're going to be able to perceive their combat speed and react to it at the same time. That means Obito, at the young age of 13, 14 was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was able to react to Minato's striking speed and catch it. Not only that, we see Obito run twice at Minato, who was also running towards him in 2 different occasions, and Obito is not overwhelmed by Minato's speed. He has a full grasp on like the situation happening. He's not like overwhelmed by Minato's speed, at least visibly. We know that in other situations, like Deidara and Hebi Sasuke, like what was previously discussed, we see that Deidara literally reacted to Hebi Sasuke's speed with such shock, as if it was very oppressive, as if it was something that he could not engage with for much longer. In this fight, no. Obito does not give any signs that he's overwhelmed by Minato's running speed, and he verbatim says that he will be able to warp Minato as soon as they touch, and Minato acknowledges this. I'm pretty sure Minato says that this battle with Obito is like a split-second difference between who would win. It's like a split-second decision.
So I just actually kind of wanted to expand on what Matt was saying, because I actually made a TikTok about this like not too long ago, and people were like disagreeing with me a lot. So basically what had happened is that it was like a gauntlet style thing, and it was basically like, who's the strongest child on here? And Yellow Mask Obito was on there, and I was like, Yellow Mask Obito is the most powerful one. Yellow Mask Obito is relative to Minato, and people were up in arms. And I just pretty much got like the same responses as to what Matt was saying, and like what like the quote debunks are to it. People are like, oh, the fight ended in like 5 seconds. Like Minato just teleported on top of him and hit him with a Rasengan. That was, yeah, but like what people don't really understand is that this is a battle between like 2 speedsters, right? Like they were probably the fastest shinobi alive at that point. I don't think that like they're gonna go into like a battle of like attrition, who can like last longer, who can do, no, it is going to be a speed dominated battle. And just as Matt was saying, Minato alludes to that. He straight up goes, whoever touches who first, whoever is the split second faster is going to win. He is hinting at the possibility that if he's not fast enough, which is exactly why he goes into level 2, because, you know, it's possible that he wasn't confident. He's like, whoever touches who first literally wins, right? And you have to be relative there, right? Like, there's just so many hints, the feats, the, like, what Minato is saying, everything points towards Obito being like relative there. So if you disagree with that, whatever, but I think that Matt was spot on. All right, guys, so it might be no surprise as to who is number one, considering we went through the first four, but I'm going to let DC take this one because DC just going to slam dunk it into the ground. I'm D-Wade, he's LeBron. DC, who is number one?
All right, so number one for this is going to be Edo Madara. Like, I'm going to preface it again, it's Edo Madara. Different forms will come up at different times. But Edo Madara, it just showed so much dominance over the 5 Kage and the entire Shinobi Alliance at that. We saw Madara pull up from the very beginning. They all use their water fortification because one Majestic Destroyer Flame can take on pretty much half of the Shinobi Alliance by himself. We see at different points that he's completely dominating the 5 Kage, dropping 2 Tengai Shinseis or Chibaku Tenseis, whatever you want to call them, being at the very beginning, one coming down, Onoki and Gaara trying to tank that one. They just barely made it, and then he just comes through and drops another one, just because he can, because he's Madara Uchiha, who is going to stop him. So he just completely dominates them. We also see that he can use all those wood clones to be able to make the perfect Susanoo clones that they all fought against, and he's even messing with them. He even goes out of his way to say, which one would you guys prefer, the wood clones or the perfect Susanoo wood clones? And that's just completely crazy that Madara has that much confidence against the 5 Kage and all of the Shinobi Alliance at that too. He completely, absolutely dominates them. There's even a panel where I'm pretty sure it literally just shows every single one of them just on the floor, completely out. Mm-hmm. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. He is absolutely insanely powerful and definitely is the strongest at this time.
Yeah, so I don't think that anybody's going to disagree with, like, Edo Madara being here, but I just kind of wanted to add on a little bit to what DC was saying, because, I mean, he was driving that Madara hype train forward, and I fucking loved it, because you guys know me, Madara is my favorite character. Also, like, Madara's physical stats are, like, absolutely absurd. He was, like, seamlessly reacting to KCM2 Naruto just charging at him. He just put up his fan, he was like, right back at you, bitch. Like, Madara is just a monster. He is extremely fast. He's faster than anybody on this list. He's powerful. He's more powerful than anybody on this list. He is just the embodiment of power. Edo Madara, without a doubt, deserves to be number one right here. Matt, what are your thoughts? Because I don't think you disagree with this. Because if you disagree with this, Matt, then we aren't having this conversation right now.
I completely agree. Don't even worry. I was literally about to say that War Fan feat as well. You also have Naruto in his Biji mode yeet those chakra rods or whatever that was supposed to restrain the Biju at Madara. Madara doesn't even need a form of his Susanoo. He just puts up his aura.
Nope.
Yeah. Just his aura is color.
He just simply blocks it with the amount of badassery that drains out of his body. Like, it is just absolutely... Madara is number one. If you disagree with that... His placement...
at number one couldn't be clearer.
Yep.
No, absolutely not. While doing all of this, I just want to mention, while completely dominating the 5 Kage, he still makes a point to mention his best friend Hashirama and how Hashirama completely is just outclassing them in every category and how there's no challenge between these 5 Kage, which is completely just is super cool to me because I love Hashirama. Definitely. And I think that after all of this challenge that they've gone through, he still mentions how they completely do not match to Hashirama at all. And I feel like that's kind of a kick in the gut to Hashirama's granddaughter being in the one of the Kage that he completely demolished. So yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, boys. So Madara is number one. If you disagree, debate your grandmother. So let's move on to the next section, boys. All right, so now that our first section has been concluded, we're going to go on to the second section. So just to kind of preface this, Shisui will remain at number 5 for the rest of the sets, and it's just mostly because we don't see any improvement from him because, well, he kind of dies. So as I did in the first section, I will be going over which versions of the characters that we're going to use, and then we're just gonna rank them. So this list will include people like Orange Mask Obito, Final Valley Madara, 5 Kage Summit Sasuke, Edo Itachi, and of course Shisui Uchiha, but like I said before, Shisui doesn't get any improvement. So now that you guys know, the characters and the forms that we're going to use, we're going to rank them. So as I mentioned before, number 5 is going to be Shisui Uchiha. Shisui fans are going to be crying at home. It's all good. But number 4 will be a bit of an interesting one because I could see how people might argue because they're biased against Sasuke, but I want DC to take this one. So DC, who is number 4?
At number 4, I think we can all agree that this one is going to be 5 Kage Summit Sasuke. Now, the reason that we are saying this is because of the nature of what happened. Now, of course, we know that the five Kage were like making this plan. They were formulating this awesome plan that they had, and that Sasuke like came up there and he was like completely shook the whole house, and everyone was like literally terrified of this guy standing on the ceiling. Like it was like a crazy interaction that they had, and even forced the hands into the Raikage. Now, what needs to be talked about from the Raikage is how that fight actually went down, because people just tended to take it at face value instead of going into it. So we know that the Raikage was a little bit mad at Sasuke. He was kind of angry. And because he was mad, he was not fighting like his normal self. The Raikage is a smart man, regardless of what people think. What happened in that fight was the Raikage actually rushed at Sasuke pretty fast and pretty straightforward. Now, if we take it back a little bit and we go back to the Taka days, Sasuke fought B. When Sasuke fought B, we can see that when he was fighting with him, B was moving very sporadically, had a bunch of swords. Sasuke was getting cut up, he was getting gashed. And at the end of the fight, Sasuke was laying on the ground pretty much dead. Because of that reason, because we know of all that interaction, sporadic movements are a little bit harder for the Sharingan users to handle. So when the Raikage is moving in a very linear fashion, we could see that Sasuke will be able to react to it a lot better. Now, at the end of the fight, he did end up putting his ribcage Susanoo, and then the Raikage was just like, all right, fuck it, I'm just gonna like punch through it, and then he did it. He punched through it, he lost his arm, he lost his left arm because of that. It was definitely a sacrifice that needed to be had. But I don't think that the fight was as whole side oriented towards Sasuke as people like to argue. I think that there's factors that play in. There's statements from the Raikage saying that even having a Mangekyo Sharingan isn't a problem for him. He understands how it works. I do not think that that fight was entirely one-sided like other people do.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that DC covered it perfectly. I just, like, kind of wanted to, I guess you could say, emphasize something that, like, he was saying previously. When it, like, comes to the Killer Bee fight, we see how much, like, sporadic movements, jumping around, like Sasuke has to worry about, like, 3 or 4 swords at the exact same time. He has to also worry about B. That is really, really hard for the Sharingan to, like, keep up. But when it comes to A's just literally sprinting at him, right? And so that's why we see Sasuke is able to, like, duck under. I believe at that time that was only V1 though, and Sasuke's able to duck under and he's able to hit him with the Chidori, but it doesn't actually do any damage because, like, the lightning armor actually functions as, like, armor too. It's pretty broken. But yeah, so, like, I, like, see people try to, like, argue, well, it was 5 Kage Summit. Sasuke, like, above people like Keiserama and Naruto because they're both relative to the Raikage. But honestly, like, I don't think Sasuke is all that relative here. I just think that the Raikage, kind of as, like, DC was, like, mentioning before, was just fighting with, like, rage. So he wasn't really fighting against the Sharingan correctly. And if you fight against the Sharingan correctly, and if you have, you know, better physicals than Sasuke, like, you just, like, kind of, like, win. And that's as we saw, like, in the B fight. B was just jumping around. B was tossing up swords. B was doing this, and that. And I mean, he was kicking Sasuke's ass. So I agree with DC 100%. DC was spitting. Matt, do you have anything that you would like to add?
No, I think you pretty much summed it
It's kind of like an outer
perfectly.
Moment. All right, boom, baby. So then now we're on to number 3. All right, so at number 3, we're going to do something like a little bit different here. I'm going to introduce the character, but I'm going to let Matt, you know, take away the scaling because Matt's just fantastic, you know what I'm saying? But number 3 is going to be Edo Itachi. So now, the thing that I wanted to talk about before I let Matt talk is the fact that Edo Itachi is a bit more capable than a live Itachi. Now, a lot of people just, like, kind of assume and they try to argue, well, since Itachi's an Edo and Edos are, you know, weaker, like, they're stated to be weaker, a live Itachi would be stronger. And this is why it's not really the, like, case. Itachi, like, as we see throughout the Sasuke fight, like, Zetsu points out, like, Itachi, like, should be dodging this. Itachi should be doing this. Itachi isn't fighting, like, how he should be fighting. So now you can definitely argue that, like, oh, you know, he's, like, trying to let Sasuke win. He's trying to make it a more competitive fight. But the thing is that Itachi was taking damage when he didn't really have to. Like, he literally took a shuriken, like one of the big windmill shuriken, like, edges to the leg. And that is a great hindrance if he's trying to actually, like, he has an ulterior motive here, right? And it's to bring out Orochimaru, and it's to, you know, like, so him just taking unnecessary damage hinders that motive for actually succeeding. So there are scenarios where Itachi should be dodging something. Zetsu's like, Itachi should have been able to dodge that, but Itachi didn't. He was also going blind. He was also sick. So, like, that, like, hinders his physicals greatly. Now when you're in a dead body, you don't really feel that pain. You don't feel that sickness. You don't feel your eyes are constantly throbbing. Like, so there's actually a statement from Sasuke. I believe it's at like the end of the Danzo fight or something like that, where no, sorry. It's actually when he is fighting May, sorry. And he says that like over usage of like the Susanoo, it feels like every cell in my body is like in agony, right? Now, Itachi has had the Mangekyo Sharingan for a while. He's been using Susanoo for a while. He's an experienced Susanoo user. Like Itachi felt that pain even worse, and Sasuke even remarks that like Itachi probably felt this pain worse. So him being in a dead body, he doesn't have to worry about that. He can spam Mangekyo Sharingan abilities like with no repercussions. And Edo's are like stated to have like infinite chakra. It's probably like infinite refilling chakra or like regenerating chakra, but that just works for Itachi's favor anyway. So yeah, I just wanted to explain why Edo Itachi would be stronger than a live Itachi, and why he kind of breaks that trend of like Edos being weaker than their alive forms. But from here, I'm going to pass the mic to my main man, Mad Matt, and let him scale Itachi.
So, I don't think anyone should have any contentions with Edo Itachi being above 5 Kage Summit Sasuke. All you'd need to use is him carrying the fight against Stage Mode Kabuto with early EMS Sasuke just mainly taking a defensive stance, and Itachi would stop him. Like, he would react to Sasuke's attacks that he was trying to launch at Kabuto and stop them from hitting Kabuto, because the intention of the fight was to subdue or incapacitate Kabuto rather than kill him, because they wanted to get rid of Edo Tensei. So it's pretty obvious that Edo Itachi would be above 5 Kage Summit Sasuke. Now, I could also bring up the KCM1 Naruto feats that Itachi does have, but like, there are contentions with that, considering Naruto was kind of holding back, and Itachi cannot hold back because he's just basically on Edo Tensei autopilot. He does also have like reactions against base B there too, like at the same time as KCM1 Naruto, so I guess you can use it for that purpose, but you don't really need it. And then you also see him tip the scales against Edo Nagato. He was the tactician behind the scenes that could save B and Naruto from him in the first place. So, and Nagato would be above 5 Kage Summit Sasuke as well. It's also just narratively implied that Edo Itachi and Edo Nagato are like peers of some kind. You have both of them, like narratively, both of them being the final boss, quote unquote, for Naruto and Sasuke in the first half of Shippuden. You have them both being pawns of a higher game. You have them both mirroring the clans of the protagonist and deuteragonist. You have Kabuto both hyping them up, with Itachi being his finest Edo Tensei and Nagato being his second strongest Edo Tensei. I'm pretty sure there's some other things as well. Can't remember anything else off the top of my head, but I think narratively they're just time and time again portrayed to be on a similar level, and the fact that Nagato should obviously be able to beat 5 Kage Summit Sasuke, it just tells you automatically that Itachi would be able to as well. So his position at this point makes complete sense.
So honestly, I don't like really see a reason for us to even comment. I think that Matt's explanation was absolutely beautiful. So we're just going to jump on to number 2. Now, number 2 is going to be a bit contentious. I know that people are going to argue that number 2 and number 3 should be swapped, or they argue that number 2 is in the correct space. But I want DC to take this one, just because DC kind of just like, I don't know. I mean, he's kind of the GOAT, you know what I'm saying? But DC, so who is number 2, yeah?
All right, for number 2, we have Orange Mask Obito. So what I think this is very contentious, but I do think that Orange Mask Obito takes the edge. Now, a lot of people, what they like to say is that Orange Mask Obito does not have defeats from Yellow Mask because of like what we've seen from him. But the scenario between the two of them are very, very different. If anything, he's gotten stronger, and I'll tell you why. So Yellow Mask Obito is 14-year-old Obito that was fighting Minato, right? This Obito is a lot older and a lot more experienced with his Kamui. We know that he still uses Kamui. We've seen him use Kamui when he does it. When he was fighting against the Three Tails with Deidara, obviously he couldn't do what he wanted to do. And throughout the entire time with the Akatsuki, he couldn't do what he wanted to do or what he could potentially do because he's a spy for them. He has this voice on. He's not even ever using his normal voice. He's using this Toby voice. He's going under the alias Toby. He's going under all this like secretive stuff so that he can keep the strings being pulled for Madara. So when people say like, oh, he doesn't have the feats, but he doesn't need the feats for you to take into account what is happening here. what is happening here is someone is restricted based off of their position that they are in a group. That does not mean that he lost ability. That does not mean anything. We still see that he uses Kamui when he's in it. We still see that he's just as like sly as he always was. I think that all the feats would carry over to Orange Mask and would even get stronger based on the fact that he's older and more experienced. And as we know, there's like a statement that as you train, as you get older, your chakra pools increase. So being able to use Kamui for longer is like crazy. And we obviously know the feats on base Minato were pretty impressive, saying that he was going to warp him the second that he touched him. And we already touched on this earlier, that basically it was a battle between who can like teleport first. And whoever was going to teleport first was going to win that fight. And that is crazy that Minato just basically conceded upon the fact that if he did not teleport fast enough, he would lose that fight. So yeah, I think that all of the feats for Yellow Mask carry over to Orange Mask and would even get amplified based on the fact that he has greater chakra reserves and would just overall have better usage over the Kamui.
Yeah, so one, I think that was absolutely beautiful. But I just kind of wanted to add on something a little bit because I know that people are going to be screaming in the comment section. When DC saying that logically Orange Mask Obito would become stronger. Obviously, we're not able to quantify how much stronger he is. I could just see that people are going to be yeah, but that's unquantified. Yes, we are aware, but it doesn't really change the fact that the feats that Yellow Mask Obito were able to achieve would also apply to Orange Mask Obito and all that stuff. And I also just wanted to add too that if you think that Edo Itachi is over Orange Mask Obito, we're pretty okay with that. We understand this is a highly contentious topic, and that I can definitely see a solid argument for either or. We just think that Orange Mask Obito can just possibly edge it out. But if you disagree with that, again, that is completely fine. I could definitely see Itachi being number 2. But Matt, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Well, in regards to Obito being stronger, you don't necessarily need to have it quantified, as you guys were saying. All we need is just his baseline feat of being relative to Hokage Minato in his Yellow Mask form. The fact that we have that as a baseline is enough to make an argument for Edo Itachi losing to Orange Mask Obito. So yeah.
Yep. All right, boys. So I think it's time we go on to numero uno. All right, guys. So it's time to move on to number 1, and kind of similar situation as last time. There's only one left, so it has to be this one. Number 1 will be Final Valley Madara. Now, I just wanted to talk about Final Valley Madara. Like I said, he's my favorite character, and DC kind of hogged the last time Madara was been knocking. I'm joking, but so Final Valley Madara is absolutely and positively a beast. So now, a common misconception that I kind of wanted to clear up. I mean, it's been cleared up, but people still think this, which is kind of cringe. So basically, people will hang on this sentence from Kabuto, where Kabuto says, "Oh, I've made your Edo body better than it was at its prime," right? So people are "Oh, so Edo Madara is stronger than what Madara's prime was." That is incorrect. Now, the reason why it is incorrect, and the reason that we know it's incorrect, is because when Madara actually revives himself towards the tail end of the war, Hashirama actually says, this is a problem. Madara is returning to his former strength. So when Madara was in his Edo body, Madara was not at his peak strength. Madara was still being hindered by the fact that Edos can't really return to their full power. You could probably argue that Madara's hindrance was a bit less than the others, that Madara's percentage in which he was nerfed was probably different, but it doesn't really change the fact that Madara is still weakened to when he comes to his Final Valley form or to his prime form. Now, the next thing that I wanted to address as well is that people do have weird contentions with that he's relative to Hashirama, because you'll hear arguments well, Madara had the 9 tails and Hashirama was able to do that. Yeah, that is true, but the 9 tails was removed from the equation rather quick. Madara just clad it in Susanoo armor. Hashirama just kind of shaved it off, and then he just kind of separates his wood golem, and then he grabs it and pats it on its head, and then Kurama falls asleep. But then after that, they fight for quite a long time, and it gets to the point where they're both extremely fatigued. They're both damn near dead, and then Hashirama is able to obviously get that final blow, and then Madara uses Izanagi, and then all of that stuff. So any people saying that like, oh well, Final Valley Madara is not relative to Final Valley Hashirama, that's just kind of like incorrect. They are definitely relative, and being relative to Hashirama, I think it's a pretty safe way to get you over this entire list. So Final Valley Madara is without a doubt number one. I don't think that there should be any contentions with that. Madara is just a beast, and like he would actually slam 5 through 2, like it really wouldn't be a problem. But anything that you guys would like to add?
Literally
no.
not at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I got nothing to say. Got all of it.
Madara kind of slams, baby. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
all
got it
right.
all.
So now we're gonna move on to the next section, boys. All right, guys, so we got the first 2 sections completed, and now we're going to move on to our third section where we get different forms. So now, as I kind of alluded to in the previous section, there are certain characters that don't get new forms, such as Shisui. Shisui will just kind of have to be defaulted to number 5, because, well, he kind of dies, doesn't get any stronger, you can't really place him any higher. So the other people that we will be using, just so you can get like a, you can get an idea of the forms that we are using, we'll be using EMS Sasuke, White Mask Obito, One-Eyed Sage World Madara, Edo Itachi, and as I mentioned before, Shisui, who is automatically defaulted to number 5. Now, also, Edo Itachi, we kind of already covered him. Edo Itachi doesn't get any stronger, so he's just kind of get defaulted to the number 4 slot. Are you guys going to cry about it? Probably. But we are going to go on with it. So, number 3 will be a person that I want Matt to introduce. I want Matt to talk about. Matt, are you ready to talk about the scaling here?
All right, so at number 3 is White Mask Obito, and I just want to start off by saying that the fact that an argument can be made for Orange Mask Obito beating Edo Itachi should tell you that White Mask Obito should soundly defeat Edo Itachi, and this is even nicely laid out in terms of feats. Remember how I said for Edo Itachi there's that one contentious feat where he's like throwing hands with KCM1 Naruto? Just for the sake of argument, let's pretend it's not contentious. Let's pretend that it is a solid feat that Edo Itachi has. We see White Mask Obito not just being relative to KCM1 Naruto, but downright pressuring him. Like there's 3 or 4 times that had Kakashi or Guy or I don't know if B was really fighting in this portion of the fight against White Mask Obito, but had none of them intervened, Naruto would have lost right there. Obito was demonstrating more than relativity against KCM1 Naruto. And in terms of KCM1 Naruto's chakra arms, which should scale above his normal movement speed, aside from his top Shunshin like body flicker speed, Obito is reacting to those too. He physically reacted to one in midair where it's difficult to move like your own body while it's in the air. He adjusted his war fan to like change his momentum, and he reacted to all of those other chakra arms with Kamui. And then we see the trend continue where KCM2 Naruto, not only does Obito demonstrate relativity to that Naruto, but we also see KCM2 chakra arms be reacted to by Obito with his Kamui as well. So this, like these feats alone would soundly put White Mask Obito above Edo Itachi.
Alright, so now that we have gone over 5 through 3, and White Mask Obito obviously being number 3, I don't think anyone's going to disagree with him being strong or being placed there. They actually might. So when it comes to number 2, there's a little bit of an asterisk next to this person. This person is going to be EMS Sasuke. Now, the reason that there is an asterisk next to this person is because it really depends on like which kind of Sasuke you are talking about. Now, you might be thinking at home, Padrino, what are you talking about? Well, when it comes to EMS Sasuke, when he first awakens it, he's not as powerful as he is later on down the line. So now, when it comes to the Edo Itachi fight, when it comes to Itachi and Sasuke versus Kabuto, I don't think many people will disagree that Itachi just kind of performs better. Now, we do have this data book statement, and people use it quite often when they're talking about Itachi and when they're talking about Sasuke, saying that Itachi and Sasuke are actually equals. Now, people try to say that, well, they're stated to be equals, they're equals in power, not one is stronger, and then they try to incorrectly, apply Edo Itachi's feats to EMS Sasuke further down the line, and it just doesn't really work. So one way that I usually argue against this whole like equal thing is that it's talking about like in terms of stature, as a shinobi, right? Because Itachi views Sasuke, and he's always viewed Sasuke as something precious, as something to protect, as something to keep out of harm's way, and as something that he should like kind of sacrifice himself for, right? Now, this has kind of changed. Now, Sasuke, throughout the Kabuto fight, has actually displayed competence in which we have never really seen, well, that Itachi has never really seen from Sasuke prior. And it's actually really highlighted to us because they like make some comparisons between the plan that they execute against Kabuto with the plan that they used to kill that boar pig thing. And so when it came to the boar mission, Sasuke failed. Sasuke was young, Sasuke was not experienced, Sasuke wasn't powerful, Sasuke failed. But when it comes towards executing that mission on Kabuto, Itachi's finally able to see that Sasuke is now a competent shinobi. So now Sasuke is no longer something for Itachi to protect. Itachi and Sasuke can fight alongside each other as peers. So they aren't equal as in terms of strength. They are equal in terms of stature. They are both shinobi and they can both execute missions correctly. And that's what Itachi is finally realizing. So now I think you guys would definitely agree that when it comes to early EMS Sasuke, he would actually be placed under Edo Itachi. I just think that that's objectively correct. But we do know that Sasuke's abilities and Sasuke's power grows as the war continues. Now, people often ask me for explanations of this and ways for me to rationalize how Sasuke has become more powerful. And there's a couple of ways that we can go about doing this. So one, we actually have a statement from B, where B's pretty much just talking about when shinobi fight. After you come out of that fight, you become stronger when you're fighting these strong people. Now when it comes to the war arc, there's strong people everywhere. I mean, there's Obito, there's the Hokage, later there's Ten Tails Obito. So it is Sasuke is finally fighting, well not finally, Sasuke is constantly fighting these very powerful people and he is playing up. Sasuke is improving constantly. Also, you also have to talk about Sasuke's relationship with Naruto and when it comes to fighting alongside Naruto. Now, that is a very important thing because Naruto and Sasuke, the nature of their relationship has always been about competition. They always try to one-up each other. This has been happening since part 1 and it continues to this war arc. Naruto and Sasuke are iron sharpening iron. They are constantly trying to just one up each other. They are competing, and the fact that they're competing, they're breaking out the most powerful versions of themselves. Now, a lot of people will have problems with me putting White Mask Obito below EMS Sasuke, and I can see the validity in that, but I just genuinely believe that Sasuke is above KCM1 Naruto, though Obito is as well. I can see how arguments can be made for either or, but what really sets it apart is that Sasuke has feats on unstable Jubito, which is really really impressive. Okay, so Naruto basically is suspended in the air. Unstable Jubito goes along to truth-seeking kind of orb rod, right? And then he goes to absolutely wipe Naruto off the map. Sasuke is able to intercept that using his Susanoo, and just amongst the other feats against Jubito and all that stuff, I just think that this is a very safe place to put Sasuke. But again, if you think that White Mask Obito belongs here, that is completely fine. I know that people are going to complain either way, but yeah, so I just think that that's a pretty good spot, and I think that we should probably move on to number 1. All right, so now we are on to number 1, and I mean, I think that he has felt very comfortable as the number 1 spot for the past 3 sections. It is going to be Madara again, but this time it is One-Eyed Sage Mode Madara. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't think I really need to give any justification for this, but in case there's some Madara doubters out there, I will give it. So how about the fact that when, I don't know, before Madara even has eyes, he's just kind of toying around with EMS Sasuke. This is the same EMS Sasuke, as I said prior, has feats against Jubito, well, unstable Jubito. And then, with the help of Jugo, he also has feats on regular Jubito. And Madara's just dodging him seamlessly. He's talking to him. He's trying to recruit him. And then he just kind of gets out of dodge. And then he goes to confront all of the tailed beasts. And then he's just time to put a leash on y'all. And want to know the craziest part? He fucking does it. As soon as Madara gets his eye, he uses Limbo. And he just starts slamming him. He puts him on chains. And he just drags him inside of the Gedo statue. What took the Akatsuki years years to do. Madara did it in seemingly minutes. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was absolutely fantastic. And then like Tobirama comes to like try to stop him. Madara's just a gangster, so he's like, get out of here. He turns him into a dinner plate, just putting forks and rods into his back. Absolute dinner plate. And then EMS Sasuke comes back for round 2, gets stabbed in the chest. There is no conceivable way that Madara is not number 1 here. It's just like, if you argue against this, you're smoking crack. No, but like, it is absolutely insane. And you know what, guys? I think I might take it a step further. Madara would also be able to be Jubito. Oh, I know. Cry about it, okay? But there are like just implications that like Madara is just like, he's just unstoppable. We even see it on like the back of volume 69, calling him the strongest villain that we have ever seen. Jubito is obviously a villain. There's just so much for the Madara hype train, and I will always be on it. One-Eyed Sage Bro Madara is my favorite version of him. He's a dog, he's a beast, and he doesn't lose to anybody before him. I don't think that anyone is going to disagree with that, guys. What are your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
I agree, man. Like,
yeah, I agree
honestly,
too.
like, I think people's only justification for Jubito above One-Eyed Sage Mode Madara is just because he's a Jubi Jinchuriki.
Yeah.
That's like the arguments I've heard in my experience. Like, when I ask, like, oh, what feats do you think would put him above what One-Eyed Sage Mode Madara was able to achieve? And like, it's just, he's a Jubi Jin. Like, that's what their argument boils down to.
Always.
And like, they have similar opponents as well. So like, Jubito and Tobirama, I know like some people might have contentions about what Tobirama achieved against Jubito, but Tobirama got like instantly slammed when he tried to do that thing against Madara. Like he did that he did react to like Madara's striking speed with FTG, but it literally cuts to him being impaled by like 50 chakra
Turned
rods.
into a dinner plate.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to say too. That like that like back of volume 69, like that statement of him being the strongest it's not a baseless statement. There is feats. There is the time frame that we have. We see things that are backing that up. It's not just a baseless statement that we're taking out of context or we're just taking it and running with it. We can see how things played out. Madara was definitely portrayed to be the strongest there.
And you know damn well what that means. The feats point towards it. The betrayal points towards it. If it sounds like a duck, if it walks like a duck, guess what it is? A duck! So now, when we were constructing this list and we were going over forums, we were like, do we want to include like the 6 paths guys, right? Like, do we want to include Tento's Obito? Do we want to include Tento's Madara? Do we want to include Final Valley Sasuke? And at first I wanted to, but then I just realized it would be like a little bit overkill. Like, you couldn't really have any like arguments for, like maybe we could put Itachi 3, maybe we can put Sasuke, like put like EMS. No. So I just wanted to leave this last section, we will talk about the Jubi Jinchurikis, and we will also talk about Final Valley Sasuke. So I hope it goes without saying that this will only be a top 3, considering that Itachi and Shisui don't become Jubi Jinchurikis. So we're gonna start off with number 3. Number 3 is who, Matt?
Number 3 is Jubito, and I just want to say that based on like what we were just talking about earlier, where we think that One-Eyed Sage Mode Madara would beat Jubito, that is not us saying Jubito is weak. By any means. This guy is still super strong, and for One-Eyed Sage Mode Madara to beat him, it would probably be at least around mid to high diff. It wouldn't be an easy fight. We just think that based on like the portrayal and that statement earlier, that Madara would win that exchange. But in terms of how strong Jubito is, at least above White Mask Obito, like we can see White Mask Obito start to cap at around KCM2 Naruto levels of speed. And yet we see Jubito dance around KCM2 Naruto alongside Jubito fight EMS Sasuke. Like, Naruto comments on Jubito's sheer speed, saying that he is super fast, or like something to that effect. Just a comment on his speed. And we see Jubito just grab KCM2 Naruto and EMS Sasuke's heads, about to like blow them off with his truth-seeking or manipulation. And they like need Minato to teleport them away in order to like survive that attack in the first place. And as far as I'm aware, there's like 2 different versions of Jubito that like you can talk about. There's unstable Jubito, where he's like struggling to remember who he is. He's like overwhelmed with like thoughts of like Rin, and like who he is. We see his mentals, like we see a mental version of him literally getting ripped apart. And then there's the stable Jubito, who's actually like in control of his own mental faculties. I think without a doubt that both of them are above White Mask Obito and justify his position, like being the side. Like, although he's like number 3 on this like part of the like tier list, he is still super strong. And besides like maybe like One-Eyed Sage Mode Madara, he would dog on everyone else like listed before.
Agreed, 1000%. And Matt, like, he drove the point home great, but I just like want to drive it a little bit further. Okay, we are not saying that Jubito is weak just because we hold the opinion that One-Eyed Sage Mode Madara is more powerful. Again, it just comes to portrayal and it just comes to feats. But Jubito, if he wasn't wavering, like, he's a dangerous person, and he was without a doubt portrayed to be, and it was actually just like shown that he's the most powerful person in Shippuden at that time. The only problem that like really comes in is that when people apply that portrayal that like he has in the first place, and they try to take it like, you know, further, like they think, well, he's portrayed as unbeatable here, so he must be unbeatable in general. No, Jubito is beatable, but it's pretty damn hard. Like, it is damn near impossible. But when you just get to the higher tiers, that is when the impossibility just kind of fades, and that's what we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about the other higher tiers. All right, so now that we have Jubito covered, he is number 3, we are going to talk about number 2. Number 2 is somebody who is extremely contentious. No one can agree on his, well, actually, I shouldn't say no one can agree on his scaling, because people who are unbiased can. But the biased people can't agree on certain people's scaling. DC, who is number 2? Tell us.
Number 2 is Jubidara. And I am so excited to talk about Jubidara. I absolutely love Jubidara. So like out of the gate, we see when he's fighting Guy, like he's just in love with the fact that he's fighting Guy. He's like, you never get to see an 8 gates fight. Like, he's so excited that he gets to fight against someone using the 8 gates. Of course, he was getting like pummeled, but that was partially due to the fact that he wanted to get pummeled. Jubidara at this point is understanding that the fact that he has a 10 tails inside of him, he can regen from pretty much anything, and he did just that, regen from it. He was fighting Guy, he was taking all those hits, he was getting kind of messed up, but in the end, he outlasted Guy, and he went on to go and do bigger and better things, fighting against 6-pass Sage Mode Naruto and Sasuke, being able to hold down 6-pass Sage Mode Naruto, while of course he did end up dodging Light Fang. As we all know, he was still holding him down with Limbo clones. He was fighting with Sasuke, he was fighting with Naruto, he was just like dropping Chibaku Tenseis. He brought like 13 out of the sky, and it was just like, I'm Jubidara, like, what are you gonna do, stop me? Well, I mean, yeah, they did do that, but he did just bring down 13 meteors. Like, he was super crazy, like, especially when you're talking about like him fighting 2 people that just got Hagoromo's powers. Like, of course they were just fresh out of it, but that's a new 6-pass chakra that they just got, and he's fighting against both of them. He has his Limbo clones out matching with Naruto. He's fighting with Sasuke. He's like such a beast. In this form, he's an absolute beast. He's cocky. We love him. He's Madara times 10, and it's awesome.
Listen, guys, you guys know me. I cannot get enough of Madara, but sometimes the Jubidara fanboys, which is weird, because I'm a Madara fanboy, they make me despise him, but I don't want to. Listen, Jubidara was portrayed as the be-all end-all. Jubidara was not able to be like definitively beaten by Naruto and Sasuke. They had to, you know, have Zetsu do some, you know what I'm saying, stuff. But the thing is that you guys can't translate that incorrectly. Yes, it happened there. It did happen there, but it doesn't carry over to when these characters become more powerful. People like Naruto becomes way more powerful, and I'm going to talk about that when I introduce number 1, which I am going to do right at this second. Number 1 is Sakura Uchiha. Now, I know, people are going to be crying, people are going to be typing really, really fast, but Sakura has some of the most impressive feats. One, she's able to dodge Kage's arm. Honestly, that's pretty impressive, right? We see her literally react to it. And then we see Kage have to adjust the trajectory so that she can actually hit her. And then on top of that, Sakura punches her so hard, it goes to the other side of the... All right.
Let's go to number 1.
The real number 1. Okay, because oh my god, DC, I really wonder how many people just clicked off right there.
All the real angry fans just deleting their paragraphs.
The real number 1 is going to be Final Valley Sasuke. Okay, I'm gonna have to do a lot of justification for this one, so sit tight, put your seatbelt on, put some butter on your popcorn, do whatever you want to. Now, the first instinctual comment is, it took Naruto and Sasuke to even contend with Jubidara. How can just Sasuke do it? Okay, because remember how I was mentioning earlier how Sasuke grew as he fought, he was fighting more powerful shinobi fight. Like, after you come out of that fight, you like become stronger when you're fighting these like strong people. Now, when it comes to the war arc, there's strong people everywhere. I mean, there's Obito, there's the Hokage, later there's Ten Tails Obito, and then he grew more powerful. Guess what Sasuke did? He fought more powerful people and displayed feats against those more powerful people. So now, we need to talk about Kage. Kage is very important to Sasuke scaling. She's very important to Naruto scaling. Now, I have made this argument so many times, but I will do it again for the one time, okay? So, Kage has been just blatantly stated to be above Jubidara, stated to have stronger, more potent chakra. More potent chakra leads to better statistics and all that good stuff. So now, the next thing that people are going to say is, well, Kage was slapping around Sasuke. Yes. Correct. But she wasn't really slapping around Naruto that much. So the thing here is that Naruto was able to show some form of relativity to Kage. Kage being above Jubidara and ODC. Well, I don't know what I forgot to mention too.
What was that?
There's a data book. You guys know how I love data books stating that Madara's limbo clones are equal to him. Want to know what Naruto was doing? Matt, guess what Naruto was doing?
What was he doing?
Oh, his shadow clones were able to contend Jubidara's limbo clones. Now, these are shadow clones, Matt. Shadow clones are, well, they have less chakra than like the main one does. So that means they have, worsened statistics such as reaction times and things like that. But they were able to hold their ground against Jubidara's limbo clones. They're the same power. Again, this is just showing that they are growing. They're becoming more powerful. We even get statements from Sasuke after Kage is sealed, saying, yo, listen, because we fought all those super strong foes, Naruto, guess what? My Renegon, I am used to it now. I am more used to it. I am better with it. Sasuke is better with it because he starts displaying abilities against Naruto that he didn't against Kage, that he didn't against Jubidara. He's become more accustomed to it. He has grown stronger. And even if that isn't a selling point, that's fine. He has Jubies behind him. He trapped all of them into a Chibaku Tensei. Yes, I know we are going to give him the Jubies. People are going to cry about it. Guess what? Keep crying about it. I don't care. And then he will have the Jubies. The Jubies will feed the chakra into his Susanoo. Then he will bring out that I am just going to call it the Cockbuster 3000 because that thing is ginormous. And he would stop Jubidara. If you disagree with it, listen, so I set the tone earlier on that if you disagree with some of these placements, that's fine. But if you disagree with this, debate your grandmother. Final Battle Sasuke, I think, is number one. DC, Matt, I want to hear your thoughts. Thoughts, go!
No thoughts are needed. Of course he's number one. He slams everyone below him pretty much.
Yeah, it's like not even like a little bit close. Like when you go into Final Valley, it's just like crazy, bro. Like Sasuke and Naruto are so equal. They are so equal. There's no doubt that from the Kaguya fight, Sasuke got a lot stronger, like literally blitzing Naruto on multiple occasions. Mm-hmm. Like it was just, and especially when he was in base. When he was in base, he was just taking control of that fight. And then even when they went into like their avatars in Susanoo, Naruto was trying to hit him, but he was in that perfect Susanoo he has, and Naruto couldn't get through it. Mm-hmm. He blitzed him with Chidori. Eventually, they ended up both losing their arms. Like it is just such a heavy implication that they are equals at that time. Whether or not you like think that Naruto's holding back more than Sasuke, it does not matter. At the end of the day, they were both hurting each other, harming each other. They are pretty equal in terms of like my opinion, at least.
Yeah, and
I was just gonna say as well, like just in terms of like the manga composition, in terms of like the art, you see like the way Kishimoto draws like their avatars like fist bumping each other, like as if they're both on the same level. Like it's these implicit proofs. Yeah. Of like them being a similar stature. I think too many people look for explicit statements or explicit feats when literature is literally all about implicity. It's like about those subtleties that you need to look for.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, and just as Matt was like saying absolutely beautifully, there are many of those subtleties. There are many of those little implications that they are in fact equals. Now, I used to be a firm believer that Naruto was just above Sasuke. He was 100% above Sasuke, but when you like actually take everything, all of the evidence, the feats, the implications, the narrative, everything, you just kind of come to the conclusion that they're a lot closer than what I previously thought. And if you guys were to ask me if I think that Naruto beats Jubidara, yes, he does. End of war arc Naruto, end of war arc Sasuke. They would take that W, and I stand firmly by it. But honestly, that was a long video. Holy hell. To people who watch the end, I am curious. To people who watch all the way to the end, one, I love you. Two, if you made it to the end, comment Ebisu is strongest Uchiha right in the comment section.
Yeah.
But everybody, before we go away, I just have to thank DC. I have to thank Matt. They stayed here for this long video. They put so much effort. They put so much scans. They put so much everything. DC edits the thing absolutely beautifully. I just want to shout out their TikTok. They both have TikToks. It will also be in the description. Mad Matt, follow him. DC Comic Stand, follow him. DC has a YouTube, follow it. DC has a Twitch probably. I don't know. Everything related to either of them, follow it. They're absolutely beautiful people, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.